Ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome from pretty hot Berlin here. It's a big pleasure to have another Ladies Beyond Flying Aviation Women panel. Today is the 24th, so we started our journey 2 years ago. I very well remember it was 8th July 2020, and now we are already 24 monthly panels, and it's a big pleasure to have another great speaker with us. Today we have Nicolle Jackson, who is mother, was a bride, now is a wife, is a director. I think you're also a student and you're a woman in aviation, and you're going to talk about all this for our great community. And I'm looking forward to it. I think we have thrilling 45 minutes, 60 minutes. I think it depends also from the questions from the audience. So welcome, Nicolle, stage is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone, or good evening, good afternoon. This has been quite a journey when we first started this, being small and being, women in aviation and discussing how we do what we do. And, when we first started this, I believe I was the manager of crew scheduling. And, it was right during COVID and everybody was so busy, but yet we had no flying. And why were we so busy? And I think, the support that we've garnered, that I've garnered from this group has been one of the reasons I've gotten to where I am today. I remember speaking on one of our first women's panels, and we were talking about, the glass ceiling and how, women in operations and those kinds of things are less common. It's a male-dominated position and industry in that regard, and seeing how we're breaking that glass ceiling wide open, is one of the crazy things. One of the things I asked on another women's panel was how other women are communicating and striving to work with their male counterparts, or especially folks that they don't necessarily agree with. And one of the women said, you just keep doing what you're doing. You keep doing the job and doing it right. And, forgive me, sometimes you're doing it better than, those male counterparts. And I really took that back and thought about why I was having those struggles communicating. And I realized that I was letting the frustration that, I wasn't being heard, really get to me and bring me down. And it was, that group that kind of helped me take a different look at it, where I could still be vocal and still be strong. And still, some people might view me as difficult to work with because I was loud. But then it came down to, I had taken a different position in our IT department. And I was out of the SOC, out of the crew scheduling role, for about 9 months, working on project implementation. Sorry, Daniel. and our leadership team came to me. It was during the Omicron, the whole blow up again, the resurgence of COVID. And they came and they asked if I would come back into the SOC. And I had made it clear that it was going to be temporary, that I was coming in to help out and do those things, and, helped the team, supported the team. We had crew schedulers, we had dispatchers, we had duty managers all going down with, the Omicron variant, and everybody came in and pitched in to help. And I think finally that's when leadership realized that I was the best person for the open role within the SOC, the leadership of the team, coordination. If you don't have an appropriate leader in this position, who communicates and listens to people's concerns and communicates that upward and downward, then this room falls apart. And I think that's what this team lacked, and that's what they have now. They can come and talk at any point. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I am successful in this role, is the leadership style that I take on, and realizing that, going back to the title of this, you can have anything that you want. You could do anything. but you can't have everything, and it takes that time. And when Daniel and I first discussed this panel, I was baffled. It's like, what do you want to hear from me for? And, trying to, bring a department back together, planning our wedding still in the midst of COVID. I was also attending to finish my bachelor's degree in business and project management, and then taking on the director role, as well as being a mother and coaching my son's baseball team and all of those things. And, he asked me how I do it all. And you don't. You don't do it all. There are times where, my son is eating ramen noodles for dinner and he's playing his video games because I'm on a call. But then the next night, I'm not taking the call while I'm coaching my son's basketball. It's that give and take, and that I don't know. It's just a skill you have to learn, that what's important to you at that time. And, when I took on this role, I was speaking to my then fiance. It was about 3 months before our wedding. And I let him know, this is going to be a demanding role. It's going to be one that I'm on 24/7, 365, even vacations, weddings. Like there's going to be those phone calls, and having his support is necessary in doing what it is that we do. Having that support system out there for you and garnering that is hugely important. My background comes from, I started as a flight attendant. For those of you who don't know me, started as a flight attendant, and my son was 3 years old, traveling all over the place. And again, it was the support system. My parents helped, my family helped with that. And then I transitioned into crew scheduling, which that's even more demanding, almost, the stress that goes along with that. And then, taking on additional roles and implementations, implemented the new FARs back in 2014. That was a fantastic, experience at that regard. A lot of folks struggled with that. And, especially during a snowstorm, nobody thought that we were going to put this off for a snowstorm. We just went full steam ahead. And, garnering all of that experience from the great leaders that I had has helped get to where we are as well. But I think one thing, really we need to focus on, as women, as, people, as women in aviation, is, make sure you're taking that time away, because you're no good to the team and you're no good to your family if you don't get that time away for your family or for yourself, and, are able to enjoy all the great things that we do. So I don't know what questions you guys have, if you guys have discussion points or things like that. I just wanted to kind of open it up and, have a good, happy chat.
Maybe first question from my side. Do you think, because we're discussing male, female, and the roles and strengths and weaknesses, do you think men are not good, as good as women, in order to understand exactly this principle? Are they maybe, in their perspective, maybe showing a weakness if they are not taking the business call in order to take care of the family, for example? And that's where women have a better understanding and are more clever to understand exactly you need to balance all those, or you are either losing family support or maybe the job.
I think it's a different mindset. So I kind of tease my husband, because he laughs at me because I'll be talking about, okay, we're going to go to Disney World. And 2 seconds later, I'm like, okay, I got to do laundry. I got to get the groceries put away. Like, my mind is just going. It's the multitasking that I think is just inane to women, whereas men are more focused. I tease that, women's brains are like the World Wide Web. Like, there's just all kinds of thoughts going around in their head. And whereas men, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's boxes. And so they have the box that they take out that is football. And so that's what they're doing. Or they have their work box, and that's what they're focused on. And they don't jump from box to box to box. They put that box away and take out the next one. I think for those, in leadership roles, they see themselves as that leader, and that is the box that they continuously work in, and aren't necessarily maybe able to put that box away for very long. And so you'll see folks that, they're at their baseball game or their children's baseball games, or they're at different events, and they have to step away, for that. They can't trust that their team is capable of handling those things, or their team doesn't feel that they're enabled to handle those things. And so they need to reach out. And one thing I really work with my team on is them understanding that, what, if you need to call me, feel free to call, but I trust you guys to make the right decisions. You know what our position is, whether it's completion factor, or it's statistics, or cancellations, or, crewing extensions. You guys know how to do that, and building their confidence to know that they can do that is I think what's key in leadership. Is it's not about me doing all of the things and me having to approve all of the things. It's about them having the faith in themselves and the understanding that if they do make the wrong decision, I still will stand in front of them. It's not going to be, we'll have a discussion on the side that says, hey, maybe this was a better idea, and have that discussion so we can grow from that and learn, rather than always having to be the one standing there. They know, for example, my team knows that, as far as me, I'm a crew scheduler at heart. So a crew cancel is like tantamount to death. At this point, I looked at one person once and I said, we don't take a crew cancel. There is always a crew somewhere. And, that they'll call and say, Nicolle, we don't have a crew. I'm like, okay, wait a second. Let's take a step back and see what we have to move around and what we have to shuffle. And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, so next time, this is, A, B, C, D, and you can coordinate that way. Is there a better option for taking a smaller delay on one thing and, pushing forward with, the thing you have to handle right now? You don't have to look at what the impact is necessarily tomorrow. Look at what's today. I mean, in ops, things develop hour over hour, minute by minute. You can't think about 10 hours from now when you don't have right now taken care of. And, being able to train your teams to be able to look at those things, I think, is what helped me as well as my team. And learning that, I look at that in life too. What do I need right now? What is important for right now? What is important? Okay, what's the next step? Instead of trying to take this big whopping thing that you have to solve for, okay, what's step one? Because you can't get to step two without step one. You're on mute.
Any question from the audience, ladies? Then I have another one.
I have one too, Daniel. Okay.
Okay, good. If nobody is speaking up, so Azadeh, please go on.
Sure. Nicolle, can you describe a typical day in a boardroom or with the higher management for yourself? Do you get a chance to speak up a lot? And how is in your work environment the balance between men and women? And do you feel enabled to speak up?
Before I took on this role, I did not. I felt that we weren't heard. If I was, speaking up about, leadership would ask where such and such resource is. Why don't we have enough resources? Why didn't you, look at the resources and tell us? And part of that was, my own leadership, had communicated, but it just wasn't heard. And one of the things when I brought this, took on this role, it was important for my leadership to understand, I will stand up and say, and you have to hear. And so, when we are in a room, I don't think I've been in a boardroom for 2 years with these guys, but even on calls like this, they understand that if I'm speaking up, that if I'm saying something, we need to do something. And I think that's only been built by trust. They didn't know me when I first came on board. I had, my own leadership that, did the same for me as I do for my team. Is when things are going south, they stood in front of me. So they didn't hear me. And I think now, having built that trust and that understanding, they do listen. And they, sometimes I have to kick my feet and stomp. And, sometimes they take it in and they're like, okay, do what you have to do. And in other times it's pretty much a, sit back and don't worry about it kind of thing. And you have to take those lumps. You have to decide what's worth fighting for. There was a situation where we were trying to retain an employee, and it would have been, I thought, a very advantageous retention for not only my department as the SOC, but also for the company. And, in the long run, we weren't able to hold that retention. And I had fought, I had communicated, I had laid out the reasons why this was there. And I got a response that was very frustrating, but I realized I have other things that we needed to focus on for the team. And so I let it go. And that was, one of those things. It goes back to, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything. There's a cost for it, and it's not necessarily monetary, but it could be time or effort. There's a finite amount of time in a day that you can complete, the things that you want to get done, and, understanding where that priority is. And sometimes it shifts, your priority is, this for 1 minute. And then the next thing, you have to focus on, what the next priority is, or completely turn your focus. One of the things I talked to one of my managers, we were having a struggle with an employee. We had put out a bid and they did not like what the bid was. It didn't work with their life. And so, I went back and we sat down and we talked about it, and the employee had put in their resignation. And at this point, really can't afford to lose somebody, especially for somebody something as, not unimportant, but unrealistic as, a new schedule. Okay, what is the point of this schedule? Those kinds of things. And I talked to the manager and I said, okay, how about we look at it in another way? Sometimes what's best for the company and for the department and the person don't always align. And so you have to figure out where you're going to dig your heels in. And I know you want to keep consistency and keep your schedule, and this is what, the schedule is that you've determined. But what is the benefit if that person leaves? That there's sometimes being consistent is being inconsistent, and trying to teach people that, it's not always the hard line. No, this is my schedule. This is what I put out. This is what we need for coverage. Being able to take a step back and saying, okay, for this time frame, we will adjust this, to retain you, but understand that, we're going to have to figure out for the next time. And being able to have that compromise is important. I don't know that necessarily enough people really see that there is that benefit in being consistently inconsistent or consistently inconsistent, something like that.
So Nicolle, with your, let's say, multitude of responsibilities and activities you are doing, you are, from my understanding, the opposite from many other people in the industry who are also busy and they don't have so many roles. And also, when I was asking you, would you be willing to appear on the IBS Software Air Show? Yes, and you did the presentation. You attend these panel discussions and so on. So do you see somehow a correlation between all the different items, being a student, a bride, a mother, a wife, a director? Was there something from the one item which helped you for the other? So is it somehow like an net and a network which is exactly helping you to keep all these balls up in the air?
I don't know that I keep them all up in the air, Daniel. I wasn't sure that I was going to actually be able to attend this morning looking at my calendar. But, people pile meetings on top of things. Nobody pays attention to gaps in schedules or anything like that. And I think, frankly, for me, I get bored. And, with boredom comes that complacency. I'm so used to being busy, having activity, those kinds of things. And I think they all kind of bleed in. My husband asks, he's like, okay, so what's next? What's next? And I looked at him, I'm like, I don't know yet. I don't know what that is yet. But having that, I don't know if it's the way I was raised, and that, my mother was a single mom raising 3 kids, that she was always so busy that that's just what I expect of myself. Or if it's just the lack of boredom, or, I also believe that, when you stop learning, when you stop growing, you're dead. And I'm not ready for that yet. I still have the world that I want to see, the customs I want to learn, the people that, I'd like to meet. And also being an example for the younger generation. I see, with, especially women as they're coming up through the ranks, is, being a role model for them, that, you can do this. Don't ever think that it's not something that you can achieve. And I had a friend of mine, she's like, I will never get to that point. And I looked at her and I said, now why? Because there's only 2 reasons. You're either unable or you're unwilling. And if you're unwilling, I can't help you. But if you're unable, what do we need to make it so you are able? And she really sat back and thought about it. And she was amazed that it was really that she was unwilling to put in the time. And once she put in that, decided that she could put in the time, she was like, wow, I really am able to do this. And now, because I see I have the ability, I'm absolutely willing. And so it's a matter of, figuring out what it is that you want. And I think I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. Excuse me.
Cool. Aditi, you have a question to Nicolle.
Yes. Hi, Nicolle. It's wonderful hearing your thoughts and definitely very motivating. I was wondering, in your experience, how do you feel like when you reach out to different women or when you see other women around in the industry? Do you feel some of this low morale or lack of motivation or external factor issues? Is this a lot of this, do you feel is self-inflicted or due to the environment that we're in?
Oh, I feel like it depends on where we are. And just to kind of qualify that, I feel like there's a general frustration within the industry as far as women go. I read your article this morning that you posted, Daniel, and I agree 100%. There are people who still make inappropriate comments, and you don't even they don't even think about what they're saying, in those regards, and how inappropriate it is. And, trying to have the balance where, you're expressing that something is not okay without being known as, difficult to work with, or not having a sense of humor because you don't laugh at a joke that's really not that funny. I think it's getting better. I know when we were at NACU, I saw a lot more women, and that was really, it's a happy thing for me to see that it's not just, a few handful here and there. There's a lot of growth that's happening within the industry. I personally am one who chooses to celebrate folks, especially women, because I feel like for so long we haven't. It's always been a very competitive type environment, especially in aviation, is, well, she got there because she, is friends with so and so, or she did that. And, actually she went and she worked and she got her degree, and, she went to school at night and she did those things. And that's something to be celebrated, and I don't know, I think we're getting better at it as women. I think groups like this help us to not be the quote unquote stereotypical catty people who put folks down for that. But I think there's still room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Fair,
Any
absolutely.
further question? Aditi, go on, please.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, that we absolutely believe in that thing. And I think when Daniel and all of us, when we came up with this idea of the entire group, and when we were even working on our mission statement, I think celebrate is the word that we really focused on, that we want to celebrate what each woman have really achieved in the industry, and we really want to promote and foster other women to really achieve more and more. So thank you for your thoughts. Very motivating.
Well, and it's like I said earlier, I don't know if you were on Aditi, but this group is part of the reason, kind of shifted my own perspective in that regard, is seeing that there were so many women who had, so many different opinions and guidance, and, people who have been in the industry for years longer than I have, and seeing the things that they have accomplished as well. I may not be able to always attend the Ladies Beyond Flying at the panels, but I watch those and they make me smile. It's a fantastic thing to see so many successful people, number one, but women as well. It's very motivating.
So true. Absolutely.
Christine, do you want to mention your comment you put in the chat notes verbally?
I do, and that's perfect timing, because talk about Nicolle. Thank you for speaking to everyone today, and I love that you reflect back on the early panels going, holy cow, all these other people have the same issues as me. Like, yes, it's universal. Talk about wanting to do everything. So today I wanted to attend this. I wanted to get ready for work, but I also wanted to sleep in. So after I typed my comment, I actually quickly washed my hair thinking, oh crap, they're going to call on me. So thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I laughed, Nicolle, when you said loud, because until so recently, and I still slip up sometimes and I correct myself, I called myself a loudmouth. No, we're not loudmouths. We're standing up, whether it's for me, my kid, my bonus kid, someone who's being misgendered, deciding to not stay quiet and say, no, I don't agree with that idea, and this is why. We're standing up. We're standing up, and, if someone wants to consider that loud, that's fine. But I think anyone else who hears me or you being referred to as loud should also stand up and say, no, that's a mischaracterization. And that's very much weaponizing femininity, like calling people the B word and shrill and aggressive and all that crap that just, it needs to be retired. And I had an epiphany, Daniel, this morning because of this group and what Nicolle was saying, that no matter what anyone else is saying, like yesterday, I found myself the only woman in a meeting. As usual, I'm in IT now, not at all in logistics, although I do, not at all in aviation, although I do work with 3 former colleagues, 4 actually, very closely from Air Canada. And I found myself the only woman. And because of my years of experience, we were talking about an SOP, and I was looking at the way it was being documented. And first of all, my tech rating skills were crying out that this needs to be fixed, which I did get a chance to suggest revisions later in the day to the writer. But also the way they were going about it, the questions they were asking, having the right people in the room, et cetera, et cetera. When you're rolling in an SOP, you really need to ask the people who are going to use it, does this make sense? And we had almost all the right people in the room. And I just decided to I kept deprecating myself and saying, oh, here goes Kristen asking another question. No, stop that. Just ask your question. So my epiphany was this: regardless of who's in the room, how many men, I'm the only woman identifying person, it doesn't matter. So I think this is what I'm going to try to do. And I hope that I can inspire at least one other person to do the same, is don't worry about the women-man thing. Just be you. Just speak up when you think it's necessary. Speak out on behalf of others. Call out crap. Call in people to support you when necessary, whether it's verbally in an email, a side conversation. And just never mind the gender thing, because I think even continuing to talk about it. And I wish Anne and Fatima were here, because I'd love to have their take on that. They're so blunt with me, which I appreciate. Oh, Anne, are you here? If you're here, I'd love to hear. You're here. Yay, I just saw you're here. I think we should just go on regardless. And if anyone who knows me well enough to translate Kristen speak, sometimes I get lost in my words. But yeah, I think we should. This is, and I realize that I'm saying this from a place of super white woman privilege, that I have a privilege that others don't. My intersectionality is such that people will generally let me talk in a meeting. Well, and if they don't, I'll just get loud. Haha, pardon the pun. So yeah, so Nicolle, I just want to thank you, because you made me have that thought. And I love when I have new thoughts at the age of almost 54, that things don't have to be static. They can evolve continually. So thank you.
I was going to say, Chris, I'm here. It's Anne. I'm cycling, though, like Alex is normally doing. So sorry for that. But yeah, you're right. I've stopped worrying about the man-woman thing a long time ago.
Yeah, I
Can
kind
you
of
hear
thought
me? Yeah.
while I was thinking it, actually.
Yes. There's no point. Does it?
No.
Does it matter? At the end of the day, of course it doesn't.
No,
Either.
and
Yeah.
we're both always going to exist in the world, whether it be personal life, family, or work, right? So
Yeah.
stop trying to maybe not categorize, but recognize, acknowledge, but say, look, I'm going to swear. Who gives a shit? And just go on.
Yeah.
Just do it. Do
Exactly.
it anyway. Do it anyway. Find a way to do it. And if you can't figure out how to do it yourself, ask a friend, ask a colleague, ask someone you wouldn't think of consulting. Like I am in the unenviable position of forming my own network at work. I mean, for those who don't know who I am, Kristen Bieger, Canada, lost my job in aviation, and was one of the aviation orphans that Daniel collected, and very grateful for that. And had 20 years at Air Canada. I didn't know everything. Absolutely, I would never say that, but I always know who to ask. And I was getting to the point where I was ready to start thinking about directing a team. I had never wanted to do that before. So now go forward 2 years, and I'm in a completely new industry, last mile logistics. We deliver the packages from Amazon to you. But in that world, of course, the IT is super complicated, cybersecurity, info security, all that. But all new people, all new players. And yesterday I got to know a new subject matter expert who I told, now that I know who you are, I'm going to count on you. I'm going to call on you for things. So it's up to us to find those people. And like Mr. Rogers, the American TV show used to say, find the helpers. So for us, it's find the helpers. And Nicolle, you're smiling, so I think you get it. Find the people that you think can help you, and you better be ready to turn around and help them too, because this is what makes the world go around, right? I'm going to pause my mic for now.
Thank you for that, Ms. Devil. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Nicolle, I have a question. I think imposter syndrome is one of these topics which is very often hindering other to follow, let's say, your role model. But I can also assume that you all also have to overcome some personal fears when it comes to a new assignment, to a new task, to a new responsibility. We all have fears. So do you have a specific mechanism how you can overcome this first initial feeling of, am I qualified to do so? Am I capable to do so? Do I have enough time? Maybe this is something which can also encourage the other to maybe throw away their own obstacles and follow your example.
That is funny that you should bring it up. So this role opened up about 3 years ago. And I was approached as to why I hadn't applied for it. And my belief then was, as you said, you called it the imposter syndrome, that, I don't have a dispatch background. My background is scheduling logistics and people. And I didn't think, to be a good leader, I understood enough of what the other disciplines within this room did. And, that's what I told him. I said, I don't think I can lead a team of people that I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of their jobs. And so we went on with our daily life, and they, hired my predecessor. And come down to it, and I was sitting and I was looking and I was like, I could have done that. Like, why didn't I have the confidence in myself for that? And I was really disappointed in myself. And another opportunity presented itself where a friend of mine she was also a coworker. They were looking to fill a position in IT. And that position had been open before as well, and they had approached me as to why I didn't apply for that. And I'm like, I don't know anything about IT. I couldn't tell you what a SFTP folder is or an FDP folder, or I couldn't tell you what that stuff is. And then I talked to her boss or her leader, and she is probably my second most influential woman in, my career. And she listed out all the stuff that I did currently on a daily basis. And she's like, so what makes you think you can't do this? And I sat and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to swear now, Kristen, you're damn right I can. And having that confidence going into it, and, sitting down with, one of the IT programmers or our security director and going, okay, I got an hour every week. What is an FTP folder? And teaching me how to do those things or utilize those things or what those things were. I was amazed by it. And so when they approached me again about this position, I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I think it's just how you have to set your mind up that, it goes back to, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything. So you got to decide what's important to you in that regard. And for me, what's important in this role is the people. Yes, our job is to move metal. Our job is to do this. But if you have a team that it feels supported and enabled and you're engaged with them, they will do anything. It's about keeping these people happy, keeping them engaged, listening to them, understanding that if they don't understand, here's the explanation, here's the time it takes. I have a very new team as far as operational leaders, and I was putting together a leadership workshop, almost having them understand that your job is not now to do all of the things anymore. Your job is to delegate those things so that you can move on to the next one, and learning those things that, it's about leading the team. It's not about bossing the team around. And I think that's something that, develops over time as a leader.
Thank you, Nicolle. That's very insightful. And there's already Claire who raised her hand.
Hi. So I also worked for 20 years in crew scheduling and crew planning. So I know how difficult that job is. You mentioned it earlier. I am curious, you mentioned that you didn't apply for this position the first time because you didn't have the dispatch experience. And at least in my experience, there's kind of a hierarchy in an SOC, which has dispatch, more at the top, where that's, at least in the US, that's a licensed position with formal training. Crew scheduling is not. But in my airline, many schedulers became dispatchers, and they said it was a much easier job than crew scheduling, because crew scheduling is so tough, and it's tough. And if people have done it, they realize how tough it is, but I think it can often be disregarded by those who don't understand what it is. How have you transitioned into this leadership role now that you're in it without that experience? What have you done to sort of combat that perception of your previous experience?
So one of the things when I was in my previous role in IT, it was project management, and we implemented a new dispatch software. And being so heavily involved in the testing of that stuff. I learned a lot in that regard. I'm extraordinarily fortunate as well. The chief dispatcher I have, he helps me along the way. And, the team, I think they see that I'm out there, answering questions. If I don't have the answer, it's like, Kristen said, is going to find the people who have the answers. My chief dispatcher, he communicates with me, he explains things. And one of the things now I can add to the list of things that I'm going to do for 2023 is I'm actually going to get my dispatch license. But I think, during that implementation, the dispatch team seeing, me out on the floor, not as the director, but as IT support, and being able to help them walk through. Maybe I don't necessarily understand like the weather or the TAFs or the METARs or any of that stuff, but I know how within the system you can get that information. And I think that's what garners I hate using respect, but the respect for the role. And maybe that was, just my own confidence as well, is not having necessarily that confidence enough in myself. And then gaining that through other experiences is, I think, what really makes the difference. And you're absolutely right. Dispatch is so much easier than crew scheduling.
Which leads also to the question, is it much easier to be a pilot because computer is supporting you, or being in the back and treating all the passengers well? So I am sure the pilots will always say pilots are higher ranked than cabin crew, but I would say keeping everybody happy is also pretty ambitious and an art somehow. So, and you were a former flight attendant, so others are former pilots and becoming manager, and you were a former flight attendant. So I think it's even.
I think we need to stop looking at what's harder and trying to compare the two, because they're infinitely different. I think, as with anything you look at, you're dealing with mass amounts of people face to face is definitely very challenging. I think being a pilot, you're responsible for those souls on board, and that's a lot of responsibility as well. And I think, it's not necessarily the flying of the airplane that I think is necessarily the challenge. I mean, they go to school for years, they have to do all of the hours. It definitely garners respect, but it's also having that situational awareness to be able to make educated and wise decisions up in the flight deck, because you have however many souls on board that you're responsible for. I don't think it's a comparison or a competition between the two. It's different. It's just different. It's not better or worse. Although I don't know that in today's climate, with being a flight attendant, I don't know that I'd be a very good one.
And something you just said, Nicolle, the comparison, and it's normal. We've done it for eons, right? However long that, industries have existed. It's very much, as I'm learning from one of my favorite people on LinkedIn, Farzad, I never remember his last name. It's very much a capitalistic mindset that we compare jobs, that we compare skill sets that are required. Thank goodness that all of these different skill sets exist, because I'm just thinking of a childhood friend who I've known since the age of 5. So that's a long time. He's a pilot. He's flying 87s for Air Canada. I mean, it's nice that they're called Dreamliners, because that was his dream job from a very young age. And I can't believe my goofy little friend from childhood is flying, but he has the mentality for it. He takes it seriously. He loves it. He's passionate for it. And quite honestly, I wouldn't want to have that responsibility. And going back to being flight crew, and whether it's flight deck or in the cabin, right now, does anyone want that? I haven't heard the statistics for complaints in Canada, but the complaints that are being reported for, what do they call them? There was actually a department at Air Canada. I'll say disgruntled, it's not the right word, but horrible, awful passengers have grown like, what, 400%? So whether you're at the airport, in the aircraft, et cetera, like it takes different characters to do it. And the fact that they haven't lost every single airport crew person is a freaking miracle, because people are they're horrible. They're really, really awful. So it takes everybody to make this beautiful puzzle that an airline is work. And I would think that pushing Ting would be easier than pushing people, right? To put it very like inelegantly, crew scheduling, you're dealing with humans. Come on, like the different pressures that come with that. Yeah, I would get that people would say it's less difficult. And Anne has something to say.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah, I was just going, I think it's been like the norm that you should always, I don't know how many times I've been asked that, oh, you must assume a leader role and you have to, be a leader for people and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, I don't want to, I'm a product building kind of person. I love startups. I love technology. I love, that's what makes me thrive. I love progress. I love, and I don't like, this kind of traditional environment that we're typically in. So I think it's all about the different people and what they can attribute and have their role where they can grow and thrive. And that has nothing to do with really the sort of, the fancier the title or whatever. I mean, that's what I believe. But, it doesn't work like that because of what you said, Kristen, the sort of the norm of how society normally works, right?
I absolutely agree. I think it was really awkward for me when, people are introducing, me as, the director, and I'm just walking around saying, hi, I'm Nicolle Jackson. I'm nobody special. I'm just here for the team. Like, how can we grow this? How can we build this? How can we do those things? And it was just, it was very, very awkward for me because people introduce as like, well, this is my boss. I'm not your boss. I'm not your boss. I don't believe in, boss lady or those kinds of things. We're a team and we're doing this together. It's very I can't think of the word now. But it's very much a team atmosphere rather than, a dictatorial style I have.
Cool. So we're almost at the end of the session. Are there further last questions to Nicolle? Then just let me give you an update. We are almost 800. I think we are 790 now. So next milestone will be 800. According 1% rule, we are more active because we had more than 8 people here in the session today. And interestingly, I saw that we have 2 of the upcoming speakers in this panel. So we have next month speech with Yapmun Ching from AirAsia, again, on sustainability topic. And then Sarah Hannon is talking in October, also about sustainability. And we have Claire, who was already speaking today in the session. She will take the session in November. Then we have the CFO of Grupo SATA in our December session. And we have already also booking for the next year because Emma Taylor from Virgin Australia is talking in January, potentially also being a mother and working in technology. So I think we have a wonderful and thrilling topics ahead with our Aviation Women panel. I hope you're all going to join us also for the session. If you have another speaker who shall appear on stage and make a lovely presentation like Nicolle today, please kindly do the needful and contact me and make a suggestion. I loved what I was hearing from you today, Nicolle. I think what we have discussed earlier, exactly this conglomerate of different activities and the story around you made my day. I hope you could inspire other ladies beyond flying here in this group to follow your example and be also a wonderful contributor to our beloved industry. So thank you, everybody, for attending the session. Please stay healthy and safe. And if you know another industry colleague who is meeting our 4 major criteria, being positive, smart, upbeat, and enthusiastic, she can join our community. But we are also letting male colleagues in our community because we are very inclusive and diverse. So please stay healthy and safe, and talk to you hopefully very soon again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.